All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm in the upstairs room, a little home away from home, if you will. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, which features the Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners. So, putting a link in here to do some Q&A. Friday's training we had a shipper. We had a live shipper on our training that was willing to work with new brokers that actually presented lanes or a bidding opportunity for lanes for new brokers. Anyone who can meet the qualifications, supply the information through me to give to the shipper so that they can give you lanes to quote on, right? One of the largest um, mulch companies in the country. So that was a shipper, my mentor, former broker over 30 years, now a shipper. So this training provides that. Hey, LaDonna. So this is Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners, just to give you an idea. I just came in here for a brief second to do a Q&A. So anyone who has questions about freight brokering, how to start the freight brokerage, what do you need in your back office, what's a TMS system, what's a load board, how to get shippers, what to say when you contact shippers, how to contact shippers, what's the market, what's going on with the containers at the ports. You know, these are questions that you as freight brokers, potential freight brokers, want to ask, right? If you're going to be a freight broker, a logistics provider, someone who arranges for the transportation of freight, these are the definitions of what a freight broker is. So those are the types of questions that if you are considering doing that, getting into that industry, that's what you should ask, right? And even before that, starting your business as a freight broker, how do you name it? What do you call the name? Especially if you're scaling the business. Also, applying for your broker license or applying for your broker authority, right? The fmcsa.dot.gov website /registration, filling out the OP1 form. What's involved in that? What do you say to avoid making the mistakes and having to refile and pay that extra $300? How do you do it online? How do you do it in paper form? And then what's the process after that? What are the literal steps in applying for a broker license or in operating authority as a freight broker? Because the OP1 form involves the operating authority as a motor carrier and the operating authority as a freight broker. Okay, so you are choosing the freight broker. How do you fill that out? What do you say? How do you classify yourself under Section 2, where it talks about the type, the type of operating authority? Drink some water. So what do you say there? What type of operating authority do you say? And then even after you complete the OP1 form, what are your next steps, right? What comes next, right, in that process? So if you have any questions about that, reach out to us. Just wanted to stop in and do this live. There's not as many people viewing this live as there are on the dispatching side, but I'll still put it out there live so you guys can contact us, ask us questions. For those of you, this is on the Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners channel. Also, if you are, we're having a 20% off discount for the month of November, November 1st through November 30th. We're having 20% off single member as well as 2-for-1 on the freight broker side as well as the dispatching side. But this is the freight broker side, so we'll just talk about the freight broker side. So the promo code for that is 20 YouTube November. I'm typing it in now so you guys can get it, and it'll be in the chat in the broadcast of this live once we're finished. So just wanted to pop in real quick. We have trainings. We have live trainings in our Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners courses, classes, every Tuesday and Friday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So whatever time zone you are in, you would want to align that time zone with the 6 p.m. Eastern time zone. to come into the to the live trainings. If you are not invited as a guest, then you would have to be an enrolled member. Okay. So, but again, we are having that 20% off in the month of November for our veterans, as well as the YouTube subscribers to this channel, Dispatcher One-on-One Training for Beginners. So that's the Q&A session. We want to see if there's any questions right here now while you have me on the live. Also, let me also put here a link in here because we added an FAQ section to the website. So sometimes I get a lot of phone calls from individuals asking a lot of similar questions. So I put an FAQ link on the dispatcher side as well as this side, the freight broker side, to answer some of the commonly asked questions, like how much is the course? How long is the course? Do I have access to the back office? What's all included in the course? Some of the common questions that a person would typically ask when you are trying to sign up for a training platform or you are considering a training platform. So ours is right now, it is the single member is, as of this year, it's $5.99 to enroll and $9.99 for the 2-for-1. And you are enrolled for 1 year from your enrollment date. There is no monthly subscription on the freight broker side. Now, next year, at the beginning of the year in January, that will change, just like it will change on the dispatching side. And I will start to announce that during the month of December because we are scaling and we are growing. So I wanted to be sure to incorporate that growth and that scalability in our pricing platform as well. So, but right now, as it stands, if you come into the course now, then you'll be locked in and grandfathered in at that rate. So, Brandon Stanley, it's the packet detailing what's needed for shippers and carriers. Yes. So in our freight broker one-on-one training, we have in our members portal in our back office area where you get access to when you enroll, you will have what's called packet types. So you have a broker shipper packet and all of its contents. And then you have a broker carrier packet and all of its contents. So the broker shipper packet contains a broker shipper agreement, right? Because you want to have a contract between you, the broker, and the customer, which is the shipper. Okay. Then it has a copy of your broker license or your authority because you are sending this to a potential customer to review. So you're sending them your credentials. If I'm a shipper, I want to know that I'm dealing with a broker. Well, what better way to know than to see a copy of their authority or their license, right? A copy of your bond, your surety bond or your trust fund, your BMC 84 or your BMC 85. That shows the shipper that you have the minimum requirement for a bond. And a bond just shows financial responsibility on the broker side. It protects the shippers from a broker's illegal, unethical, or just wrong behaviors financially, like not paying or things like that. So it has a copy of the broker's W-9, right? Your W-9 form shows that you are a business with an EIN number, right? And you can have also a credit application that could be, because you're going to run a credit on the shipper from your, I would hope that you have a factoring company to assist you with cash flow, right? So the credit app will run the credit on the shipper to see if they're a good shipper. They're factorable to extend a line of credit so it can support you in your dealings with your carriers, because you as a broker, you need to pay your carriers as soon as they deliver, as opposed to waiting on the payment terms of the shipper. You can't afford to wait 30 days, 45 days, 60 days to pay a carrier for delivering a load for that shipper who's paying you 30, 45, 60 days. You need to pay them that same day or the next day so that they can continue to work with you. Okay. So that's all inclusive in the broker shipper packet. You may also have extra coverage as far as insurance, like errors and omissions, or what we call E&O, or contingent cargo, which is on top of the carrier's cargo insurance, cargo coverage. So you may have that as well. So that is the contents, the minimum contents of the broker shipper packet. Okay, so that's one side of it. And then you have the broker carrier packet, right? So you got because you got two customers literally as a broker, right? You have the customer, the shipper, the one who gives you the freight, the loads, the cargo, the commodities, and then you have the trucking companies, the owner operators, the carriers who you are brokering the loads to. So you are the middle person as a freight broker, a logistics provider. You are arranging for the transportation of freight from the customer, the shippers, through the carriers. Okay. So now we talked about the broker shipper packet. Now we need to talk about the other packet for your second customer, which is the carriers, the trucking companies, right? So checking my messages here because people are dealing with me right now. So the broker carrier packet, this is the packet that you send to onboard a potential carrier to get them set up with your brokerage. So this is a good question, Brandon. You asked a great question. So now, just like we described the contents of the broker shipper packet, the contents of the broker carrier packet includes the broker carrier agreement, a carrier profile so that you can get some information about the carrier, truck and trailer number, driver number, cell phone, email, what lanes they want to run in, do they have any endorsements, anything that you can extract from them that will benefit you when you are getting loads from your shipper and you see that this carrier meets the qualifications of those loads. Okay, so the broker carrier agreement, the carrier profile, you need a copy of the carrier's MC certificate or the authority, their operating authority. They call it a certificate. They call it a license on the broker side. They call it a certificate on the carrier side, but they're both forms, pieces of paper that says that you have an operating authority either as a broker on the broker side or as a carrier on the carrier side. They're both governed by FMCSA, which is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and DOT. So a copy of the broker carrier agreement, carrier profile, a copy of the authority of the carrier, a copy of their certificate of insurance, a copy of their W-9, and a copy of their credit application from their factoring company running a credit check on you, the broker. Okay, that's how that works. Just like you had a credit app from your brokerage factoring company to run the credit on the shipper, your customer, to see if they're factorable, the carrier's factoring company, to protect the carrier, will run a credit check on you, Mr. Broker, right? You, to make sure that you are credit worthy or factorable, so that when the carrier turns in these unpaid invoices or these PODs to the factoring company, that they can take possession of that to be able to pay them. They'll advance the money and then come after you, the broker, to get the rest of the money out of reserve and then pay the rest minus their percentage. So those are the packet types and the contents of each of the packets. So you guys can watch this video over and over again to get an idea what that is. You set those up in your companies, and that's your back office infrastructure. One aspect of the back office infrastructure is your packet types. Another aspect of your back office infrastructure is your TMS system, right? Your transportation management software. TMS stands for Transportation Management Software. Another aspect of your back office infrastructure could be some kind of spreadsheet, QuickBooks, things like that for accounting, financial purposes. Another aspect of your back office infrastructure can be load boards, or you may have load boards integrated into your TMS systems, or you may have them as standalone load boards, right? If you can afford to integrate them, that'd be great, because now your TMS system can, once you produce the loads and the rate cons, you can flow that data through into the load boards and post the loads automatically, okay, with what's called an API or EDI integration. Okay, so those are the packet types and the other back office infrastructure. Very good question, Brandon Stanley. I apologize I took forever to answer it, but I wanted to go into grave detail, because remember, our training is Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners, those who know very little, if anything, about this industry. Okay. LaDonna says, I'm a dispatcher, but eventually want to become a broker. I had a shipper come to me and ask me what rate would I charge them to haul their cargo interstate. How should I begin to answer that? So when a shipper comes to you, which is great because I don't know if you reached out to them, LaDonna, but they're asking you for a lane quote, right? So you would get the details of the lane, like where is it picking up, where is it delivering to, how many stops, what's the commodity or what's the freight, what's on the truck, right? What's the weight? Because weight is important when you're quoting prices, because carriers will haul the more weight, the more money they're going to try to get because they're burning more fuel. So it just makes sense economically. What are your accessorials, Mr. Shipper? That's what you're asking them too. An example of an accessorial is any extra charges that comes about outside of the normal rate of what that load paid, right? For example, detention. That's an extra charge, what's called an accessorial, that occurs outside of what the load paid. The load paid may have paid from Norfolk, Virginia to Miami, Florida, so many, like $3,000. And then when you got down there, you had to wait, the carrier had to wait an extra 3 hours over the normal time that they normally would wait. Like 2 hours, they'll be at the loading dock, but it took 5 hours to actually unload. So that extra 3 hours is called detention, right? And you get paid hourly if the shipper and the broker has set up an accessorial policy on detention. Another accessorial is lumper, layover charges, stop charges, restack charges, pallet exchange. These are different accessorials, extra charges that occur. Okay, so that's that. So how would I begin to answer that? You would ask those types of questions. The main questions is, oh yeah, I forgot another one. What equipment type will your cargo be required to go on? Right. So you want to know what type of truck, in other words, equipment type, what type of truck, whether it's a dry van, flatbed, or reefer. Typically, it's the three major equipment types, but there are cases where there may be specialized equipment types like box trucks, cargo vans, sprinter vans, hot shots. Okay. But those are some of the preliminary questions, LaDonna, you would ask the shipper in order to, because once you get that information, you can go on a load board and look at what a broker to carrier spot market rate that the carrier wants to be paid for that. And then you take that number and add, as a broker, you add your margins on that, whether it's 15 to 20% or maybe even more, depending on the frequency of the loads, depending on what you are, the market, things like that. So let's say it was 20%. Let's say a load paid to the carrier $3,000, and then you, as a broker, if you wanted to broker that load, you would charge, 20%. So 20% of 3,000, that's an extra 600. So your lane quote will be a rate quote, I should say, to the shipper, the customer will be what? At least 3,600, the 600, and then on added to the 3,000 that a carrier normally gets in that lane anyway. So if it were me in that scenario, I would have said, instead of 36, I would say like 38, 4,000, and then see where the shipper says. He may come out from 4,000 down to say, no, we can do 38, and 38 is still better than 36. So that's the art of negotiation in that part. So, the baddest around 23. I'm having a hard time building my book of business. What are some good tips that I can do besides cold call? Well, you could do text blasts, email blasts, or campaigns. You could visit the facility, set up an appointment once you speak to a logistics person at that facility, get past the gatekeeper, what have you. Have a LinkedIn account. Connect with manufacturers and shippers on LinkedIn. Okay, and start that conversation. Have a script, if you will, or information that you would say to the person you're connecting to, who is the shipper, the shipping manager, or the manufacturer, the distributor on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a professional social media platform. Facebook. I don't know about Instagram having shippers on. I'm sure they have Instagram accounts, but it's personal. It's not business related, right? You can join a Facebook group for manufacturers, shippers, distributors, wholesalers, things of that nature. So those are some other options. Get the contact information, the phone number, and emails, and create an email campaign like Constant Contact, MailChimp, or a text blast, an SMS blast. Google some SMS blast software and consider using one, and then put in a number of maybe 50 cell phones or 50 numbers at a time. Create your template of the message that you want to get across to that person or persons, and then send the blast out. And that one message touches X amount of people. That one email touches X amount of emails. So that's an option as well. But cold calling is always good. Okay. But some people get burnt out with cold calls because they get tired of hearing the word no. You're going to hear more no's than you are yes, right? So no, failures are just tests. They're just testing you, right? That's what a failure is to me. It's just a test, right? And you're building up on the last no, and you're learning from that experience what you received, the feedback from that person who said no may have given you some ammunition or some information to make your next call a little bit better and a little bit more towards success. So, okay. What else? And we go over some things in our freight broker one-on-one training for beginner. LaDonna says, so say the shipper and I come up with a rate. Okay. Then what's next? The rate tender situation, or it's called a load tender or rate tender. But yes, so you come up with a rate, and then you make sure you get you send the shipper your packet, the broker shipper packet, and then you guys sign that and get that going. Okay. And then once she does that, then the load tender comes over for you to sign, because now you've already gotten connected with the shipper through the packet, the broker shipper packet. Now the load tender comes through. That's the workflow. That's the order of operation, if you will. And then once you get that lane quote signed, now you are bound to move that load. Now you have to prove yourself, right? Finding carriers and things of that nature. So yeah. NFB Carriers, great interview on Truck and Hustle. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So that's the next situation, though, LaDonna. You would follow that workflow, Okay, you're welcome. Okay, people are texting me right now. So what else? Before we get off? What's a book of business? That's the common term that's called a book of business. Is just a list of customers that you've built over time. It's just a list of shippers. That's all it is. A book of business is your customers, your shippers. So if you are a broker agent or a broker and you get so many customers under your brokerage, and you go to another, if you're an agent, you go to another brokerage or you form your own brokerage, you take your customers or your book of business with you. That's all it is. That's all it means. They're just your customers, your book of business. However many customers you have in that book of business, that's what that means. So would you recommend starting with dispatching or brokering? That's completely up to you, but you asked me if I recommend. The easiest entry point is dispatching. Why? Because dispatchers, you touch the carriers because you are dispatching for the carriers, the truck drivers, the owner operators, the trucking companies. And you touch the brokers in a sense because you are talking and negotiating with the brokers for your carriers when you find the loads for them on the load boards. And you're going through the process of getting your carrier set up and approved with that brokerage if they are not already. So you touch both in a sense. So when you transition from a dispatcher into a freight broker, it's an easier transition, right? It's a smoother transition. That's just my opinion. On average from launch, how long would you say it takes to consistently make income? That's a great question. It's a variable question. It's a hard question to answer because it depends on the individual. Their amount of dedication, their amount of drive, their amount of commitment, how soon they get their work ethic, their workflow, how soon they get customers, how soon they go through the process of finding and moving that load. So there's various factors. That's a hard question to answer, but it's a variable question. It depends on the individual. Okay. Contingent cargo companies. Any of the common commercial insurance companies offer contingent cargo if they are commercial insurance companies for trucking companies and things like that. Commercial insurance, they offer, that's a policy type: contingent cargo, errors and omissions, auto liability, general liability, things of that nature. So you would just have to do your research on those, right? So what would you say is the largest pain point of getting the brokerage off the ground? Getting started, coming up with the actual conceptualizing of the brokerage, naming the brokerage, right? Getting a business up and running, whether it's a S Corp, LLC, sole prop, going through that process, and then actually educating yourself as a person who wants to be a freight broker or a logistics provider or someone who arranges for the transportation of freight. You have to understand what that stuff means, right? So education is very key. Not just having information, but education, right? So education is information applied, right? So how much should or how should I pay my freight agents? That's a very good question as well. So if you are at a point where you are brokering freight, right, you have enough customers that you can't handle it by yourself, and you decide to scale your business and bring on agents to assist you and grow your business by bringing more customers in or building a book of business for the brokerage. This is how I would look at it. So if you bring an agent on who does not have experience, they have customer service experience, maybe they have call center experience, but they don't have broker experience, right? I would say, I don't know, a 50-50, maybe 60-40 commission split. So every load that either you assign to that agent or they found a customer and they moved the load, every load, what you make off of that commission, the profit, it's split 60-40, 60 to the agent, 40 to the brokerage, right? That's for inexperienced agents, someone you have to train in your processes at your brokerage, right? Your processes, your workflow. TMS system, load board, train them up on your particular system and your process. If an agent comes in who has some experience, they came from another brokerage, they just decided to leave that brokerage, and let's say they brought 2 or 3 customers with them or their book of business, right? Then the pay scale can be based off of their level of experience. Now they may come in knowing everything. They just got to get used to your system, your logins, your processes. You can start them at 60-40, maybe 70-30, 70% to the agent, 30% to the brokerage, right? And in both cases, you still have to decide how much responsibility are you going to give the agent? Do they just bring the customers in and then you, the broker, continue the workflow? Or do they bring whatever customer they bring in, they manage it from the time that they get the load tender and the rate quote and the load tender to the time they work that load all the way through the process to completion and invoicing. So that's something you have to determine as well. And are you willing to train them accordingly? Okay. When getting your MC authority as a freight broker, one needs to have good credit in order to get a surety bond, correct? Yes, that is correct. Surety bonds or trust funds. The surety bond is a BMC 84 and the trust fund is a form BMC 85. The bond companies are the ones who file that with the FMCSA, saying that you have that bond for the minimum requirement of $75,000. And one of the criteria to determine the rate of the bond is personal credit, not business credit, because you just formed a business, so you don't have business credit. So they go off of personal credit. Yes. Unknown name said, do you recommend joining trade organizations like OIDA, etc.? So OIDA is more for the owner operators. That's what OIDA is, owner operators. It's an owner operator, I guess, watch group, if you will. If there is a broker organization, and there is out there that you can join, then yes. So is the correct supply chains issues a plus or minus to the industry. You can look at that as both ways, and I'm assuming you're talking about the supply chain issues with the containers, the bottleneck of containers at the ports, which seems to be slowing down, and also the shortage of drivers on the roads today, which is driving the rates up for the current drivers who are driving. So you can look at it in both ways, right? The bottleneck of containers is saying that, okay, these containers are not coming into the ports. They're not going to be delivered anytime soon, or I should say allowed to come into the ports to be picked up at the ports by the power-only trucks. It's going to slow down a little bit. Or there's a shortage of drivers, whether older drivers are retiring, newer drivers are not coming in at a record pace to keep pace with that demand, I guess, supply and demand. So it can have an impact on it's great for the current drivers because a shortage of drivers mean that they can charge a higher rate because remember, the freight, irregardless of whatever the condition is, has to still be delivered. So the customers want to pay more to have it delivered because there is a driver shortage. Then who does that benefit? That benefits the carriers, the owner operators, the trucking companies, because now they can say, I don't want to take that at $2 a mile, I want $3. Your stuff has to get delivered. Your customer is demanding your freight. I'm demanding $3 a mile to deliver it. If you don't want to deliver, okay, well, find somebody else, which I doubt because there's a shortage of drivers. Remember? So, okay. Do you recommend having a geographical niche or being national? I would say start with a niche or a niche, however you pronounce the word. And then if you want to go national as you master your area with the niche, like if you're in the Midwest, Southeast as a freight broker now, if you're in the Midwest, Southeast, or Southwest, those are good areas to acquire shippers or customers because freight, there's a high volume of inbound and outbound freight in those areas. So you would target those areas, like in the Midwest, the Chicago, the Illinois area, like Edwardsville, Illinois, Joliet, places in Ohio, Michigan. That's in the Midwest areas, Indiana, Indianapolis, Naptown. And in the Southeast, obviously, Tifton down in Georgia, Atlanta, those spots, places in Florida, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, even further down, Tampa. And then over in the Southwest, obviously, the Houston market, the Dallas market, So, yeah, thanks for adding value. Great information. I appreciate that. If you want more value, you can consider our training that we do live twice a week. I'm grabbing the link to enroll in our freight broker training for beginners. If you are a person who are considering applying for an authority, a broker authority or a broker license, as it says on the actual paperwork, then you can consider that, enrolling into our ongoing training. It's also self-paced, learn as you go. You will get access to our members portal, our back office, but the live trainings are given Tuesdays and Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you be mindful of where you are in the country in proportion or relation to our trainings. Live trainings I'm putting it in the Tuesdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, I was on the site earlier, definitely signing up. Okay, unknown name. LaDonna says, as a freight broker, how can one get their hands on some of those loads off ports all over? You would go through either a port authority. You would contact shippers who deal with freight coming in. Right now, there's a bottleneck, and there's not as much moving out of the ports as much. There's about 200. Last I checked, there was about 200,000 shipping containers alone off the coast of LA, off of some 50 to 100 cargo ships. Right, that's a lot of freight. People's Christmas gifts are probably not going to be coming in anytime soon. Right, so as a owner operator to become a freight broker, what are your recommendations? You follow the same process to become a freight broker. If you're an owner operator with your own MC and DOT, you got to create a separate entity because you have an authority for your MC and DOT. So now you have to create another MC and DOT or MC authority. You have to apply for a broker authority. Now you have either a common or a contract carrier authority. Now you apply for a broker a property except household goods authority. And you can use your trucking side to be what's called an asset-based brokerage, because now you have a truck and trailer, so you can go after shippers who have commodities that go on your equipment type. So now you can work the two together. Okay. Love this, plain and simple, straight to the point. Yes. I don't know no other way. What's the point of beating around the bush and sugarcoating stuff? And I'm not naming any names or saying anyone's doing that. I just give it to you. Here you go. So, what should be the average margins you are making per load? Starting out, I would say 15 to 20%. And I'm assuming you're asking for brokers, about 15 to 20%. So if you got a load tender that you got from the customer, $5,000, then you say 15 to 20, say 20%, that's $1,000 of the 5,000. So you're going to take off 1,000 and then resell it to the carriers through a rate confirmation for 4,000. And then when you're negotiating with the carriers, you're going to negotiate from your 1,000 to try to move that load. So I would rather, as a broker, lose some of my margins in order to move that load to win favor with the customer, the shipper, so I can get more loads from the shipper and increase my volume with the shipper. So I'm willing to lose some of my $1,000 margins in this example in order to build volume, because over time I'm going to make that money back anyway. This is some brokers don't think like that, right? They're trying to be greedy and keep all of their margins, let that load sit for a while, right? So getting contacts with shippers, is that possible for guaranteed freight? You have to prove yourself. I can't say freight is guaranteed, depending on how you start that conversation when you connect with the shippers. So getting contracts with shippers, is that possible for guaranteed freight? If you get the contracts, then you will get the freight. In order to keep the freight and make it guaranteed, you have to perform by providing the truck capacity that shipper needed when they hired you as a broker to move the freight. That's why shippers get brokers, because they do not have the capacity. So they say, well, we will get a broker who has trucking capacity, who has vetted the carriers out with their system. We will contract with the brokers and let the brokers deal with the carriers and provide the trucking capacity so we can move our freight to our customers. Let's say a shipper has a customer like Sam's Club or Walmart, right? But they don't have the capacity to move the freight. They don't have a trucking capacity. They'll go through either a trucking company or a freight brokerage in your case. Okay, so all in, what would you say startup cost would be for freight brokering? Wow. 5,000 is a good low end startup cost, and that covers a lot of things, but you'll have some cushion left after that as well. So 5,000 is decent. So I'm looking forward to enjoying your freight broker training. Okay, Hot Shot by the Mile. Okay, I'm looking forward to having you. I'm just texting a carrier who was setting up with a different company just to see what they're saying. Okay, thanks. You're welcome. Okay. All right, we've been here 38 minutes. I think that's a fair amount of time for some freight broker Q&A. You get that and a lot more on the other side in the actual ongoing training itself. That and so much more, right? Live trainings, tools and resources, different templates, forms, packets, a couple of load boards to look at as practice. Man, this stuff back there I forgot was back there, right? So then I bring on guests. Like Friday, I brought on a live shipper to talk to brokers and aspiring brokers to tell them if that shipper were to entertain brokers, this is what they would expect from the broker. And if the brokers ask the shipper questions like, okay, well, how would if I approach you this way, what kind of response would I? So you get to talk to live, real shippers and get feedback as a way to leverage when you talk to a shipper in real life on the phone or when you go visit them. So that's how I operate. I bring on live individuals in the industry, in the same industry you're trying to get into. I'm giving you live representatives from that, right? So you get to talk to live shippers and ask them real questions. So when you decide to utilize your broker authority and go after shippers, you kind of have a leg up of what to expect, what certain things you want to ask, and then you kind of, and we do mock calls, we do mock demos and things of that nature. So NFB carriers, is there a way to check if someone has used your broker MC to move freight? There is. It will take me long to explain that to you, but there is a way. There's several ways, right? But yes, outside of literally, if you have a suspicion of it, then yes. Does the freight broker ongoing training have a monthly subscription also? Not this year. Next year we will institute that. So on the dispatching side, we're going up in our price platform because we're growing and I'm adding more to that. Same with the freight broker. This year alone, there is no monthly subscription on the freight broker side. There is on the dispatching side. Next year on the freight broking side, there will be a $19.99 monthly subscription, similar to the dispatching side. This year, the dispatching side is going to go up to $29.99 monthly. But people who are enrolled this year, it will not affect them because they are grandfathered in, right? So it doesn't affect you. Starting, let's say, January 1st, 2022, everyone who joins the dispatching side will join it at this price point. It's going to be a new price point. And in the month of December, I'm going to say this the whole month. I'm going to reiterate it so there won't be any surprises, right? And put out commercials and lives and things like that. So average time to receive an MC for a freight broker, you have up to 90 days when you apply for your operator and a motor carrier, up to 90 days, but most people get it done within 30. 45, I've seen it the most, because when you apply for your authority, there's a 10-day protest, and then 20 days, the FMCSA is going to remind you, say, hey, it's been 20 days, you have 70 left, you have a total of 90 days to complete this process. The other things they're asking you for is your bond information from the bond company to file their BMC 84, 85 to the FMCSA to show that you have a bond, and your designation of a process agent. And that's the BOC, or the blanket of coverage or companies -3 form that the designation of process agent company files with the FMCSA. And then you have to file a UCR, Unified Carrier Registration, as a broker. I think it's 0 to 2 assets. You are a freight broker if you're non-asset based, or what's called a 3PL, 0 to 2 assets. You file the UCR. That you can do that. The applicant can file their own UCR, but the designation of process agent, the BOC3, those companies file that with the FMCSA. The bond companies file the bond with the FMCSA, right? Any added insurance, the insurance companies like contingent cargo, errors and omissions that you want to do as a broker, the insurance companies file with the FMCSA. The only thing the applicant does the application, the OP1 form, and the UCR, right? So, Tim Stanley, should we join any organizations as freight brokers for support? Yeah, you certainly can. The more support, the better. So yeah, someone mentioned OIDA. OIDA is not a freight broker company. There's one out there. I don't want to mention their name because they're trying to give a bad taste for another group that I'm training, which is dispatchers. But they're mainly for the brokers. Okay, so. But yeah, you can join organizations. You can join Facebook groups that talk about brokering, trade organizations that deal with the transportation industry, logistics, supply chain. So logistics is within the supply chain. The supply chain has a hierarchy, and it has warehousing, transportation, different concepts in it. So publications as well. Freight Waves, Sonar, Transport Topics. These are public. Matter of fact, let me type them in here. Freight Waves, Sonar is a publication. Transport, and you can Google these. Transport Topics. Those are the two ones, and then your local trade organizations in your freight organization, logistics organizations in your cities, towns, and municipalities. So, okay. All right, guys. Hopefully that was some good information. I just wanted to hop on here real quick and give you guys some information and speak to you about a little bit about freight brokering. See if you have some questions, Q&A. Everyone go back and be sure to hit the thumbs up button. That'll be nice. Thumbs up will be nice. We have a few people here. We have 12 people in here and we have 8 thumbs up. So they're doing it. And then again, if you are interested in enrolling or considering it at least, the freight broker ongoing training, we do have a seminar training as well, but ongoing. And phone number and email. So I'll put it in there. There. Okay. Hopefully that helped you guys. Get some more water. Freight brokers. So logistics providers, arranging for the transport of freight. So that's what we do. So we talk about. Okay. All right, guys. If that's it, thank you. You're welcome, LaDonna. Thank you for all that you do. So LaDonna's a huge help, and we have to make sure that I got to get with LaDonna and Treve and other people as far as XU and as far as like a compensation package. I got to get with my CPA as well. So, but at any rate, if there are any more questions, guys, God bless you, salute you. I bid you all good night. Thanks for all the 11 thumbs up. And this is live. So this is going to come out on the Freight Broker YouTube channel. So people will comment on that as well. And it'll get exposure. And I'll probably put it on other platforms, social media platforms as well. So everything I do is organic. I have no systems in place as far as like analytics and things like that. I probably should hire someone to do that, but it's fine. I still reach plenty of people. So, all right. Good evening to you too, my brother, Melly Mel. Have a good evening. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Tomorrow night is our Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners, the beginner students, as well as those who may have enrolled and registered for our one-day seminar on the Freight Broker side. So that's something to consider as well. All right, guys. Thank you for your time and great questions. Appreciate it.